So we have a really, very expert panel here with a wide range of expertise across the field of SEND education. So I'm just going to ask each of them to quickly introduce themselves and just give a quick 1-minute summary of their career and background and expertise. So Dan, if we could start with you, please.
Sure. My name's Daniel Sobel. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. I'm founder and chair of the IFIP, the International Forum of Inclusion Practitioners. We support inclusion in about 138 countries, and we're partnered with organizations like the G20 and UNESCO and so on. I'm a former SENCo. I've written a number of books on effective inclusion in the classroom and in the school, and I'm a speaker, and we have an IFIP theatre downstairs starting tomorrow, so come and find out more there.
Joanna.
Thank you. So my name is Joanna Gibbs. I'm the founder and director of a company called SENsational Tutors. We work with specialist teachers all over the UK. We have 150 teachers now. We have a stand which has free coffee over there, so feel free to come and say hello. I am also a specialist teacher. I have a lot of international experience as well as UK experience.
Rose.
Hi, I'm Rose Luckin. I'm a professor at University College London and founder of Educate Ventures Research. I've got a background in artificial intelligence and education. I'm so old, I've worked in this area for nearly 30 years. And I feel very strongly that artificial intelligence has a lot to bring in helping us to deal with special educational needs. So it's a real pleasure to be on this panel with these lovely people.
And Arran.
I'm Arran Smith. I'm going to just say I'm a severely dyslexic adult, so I was told to do this in 1 minute, so I'll take my 25% extra time now. So I'm a severely dyslexic adult. I am the founder of a company called the SEN Group. I also created an event called the Neurodiversity Show. I'm also vice chair of the British Dyslexia Association, and I also am a user of AI to support my own neurodiversity.
Brilliant. So Arran, I'd like to actually begin with you, please. You just mentioned your dyslexia yourself. I'd just like to know from your personal perspective, your journey from being a student to now. How do you see that AI could actually, enhance a student's journey?
We were talking earlier, and my first recollection of technology was when Encarta 95 came out, and we had ASDA for school vouchers. So that's where I started. And I use a lot of assistive technology. I use dictation, I use read aloud, I use a lot of talk tools to support my own neurodiversity. And I would write a piece of content, I come up with an idea, and I dictate a piece of content. I would then listen back to it and go, oh, this doesn't sound very good, I don't like this. And what AI has done, AI has changed that concept. It allows me to think of an idea, create content, and then actually have it so it's actually readable, and actually it's done. So an instance of a concept today, I have a product that I deal with in phonics. I wanted to write an article. I'd already written 4 bits that I wanted to put into it. I copied it into AI, and AI, there's an issue with the microphone there. That's really going to be good for a dyspraxic and a dyslexic person, isn't it? Because I'm just going to look at that squirrel thing over there. So for me, it kind of allowed me to do that within about half an hour. So AI to me, from an SEM point of view, is it should change the ability of an individual and actually encourage them, give them support, give them encouragement, give them inclusion. But I also am worried about the concept of how we could just ask it to do something. And that's the bit that I'm kind of like, that's what my daughter tried to do, and that's what I'm trying to not do. But for me, technology is growing. It's going to be amazing to see what comes out.
Amazing. And have you seen anything specifically in the SEN Theatre today that you feel is actually...
There's too much going on. I haven't got that far yet.
I haven't got that far yet. Fair enough.
Let's get the talk over with first.
Yeah. So Dan, I would just like to move to you now, if that's all right. We heard recently Keir Starmer saying he wanted to unleash the potential of AI in the classroom to help educators. But I was just wondering, from your perspective, inside the classroom, outside the classroom, how do you actually see practical ways in which AI can help, the whole SEND process?
So my perspective on this is that what underlies all effective SEN is relationship. And I think that AI doesn't help necessarily with relationship, but it might free you up more. I saw a meme recently which said, AI, I want AI to do my dishes and my ironing, and so I can be free to do my creativity rather than do my creativity so that I'll have, and that way round. And I think that there is a potential for AI to free up classroom teachers. There was one of the biggest education company in the world, which isn't here, and they have developed an AI focus on getting rid of all paperwork for teachers, all of the stresses and strains of marking and preparation, and the AI is there to help that process and also to help the student in their writing. And the reason why I thought that was quite good, and we talked about this actually at the G20, was because it would then free up the teacher and the student to have more interaction. That's where I think the space of AI can be most supportive. I don't have the imagination to work out how else we could use AI, to sort of promote engagement more than in this particular shape and format. There is one project that I've been leading on, and we're just launching it here at BETT, which I just mentioned now, which is that we've tried to solve the problem of waiting lists. The waiting lists to be assessed by CAMS. And, I should just say something which is maybe a bit surprising to some of you. Thank goodness you have waiting lists, because in Bangladesh, for example, there isn't even a waiting list. So what we tried to do was to create the very best occupational therapists, speech language therapists, education psychologists, plonk it all into an AI model, a conversational AI, so it doesn't require anyone to write anything, but just to speak to the AI. And then you can ask that AI the question about your particular child if you're a parent, or about your child if you're a teacher. I think that is a revolutionary breakthrough, but I'd still be the first person to say that is not as good as speaking to a real therapist. And I just get back to this point that at the heart of all good inclusion or all good SEN is this relational piece. I'll pause there.
No, that's really interesting. So yeah, AI more in an administrative role than a creative role. Because
that's because I don't have the imagination to think about how else it could be used. That's how I would use it.
Yeah, no, I get your point, because the
and
AI...
maybe to help me put my kids to bed, that would be really useful.
I think, I'd invest in that technology, definitely. So, Joanna, I would just like to move to you now, because you have the in-person educational experience. What do you see as the way to... We've heard about the administrative role, but how do you feel getting this technology into the hands of the practitioners, the people on the front line, the educators, the teachers, the policymakers? What do you see?
Yeah, so myself as a classroom teacher, I think when you become a classroom teacher, you want to make change, you want to be able to support children, and that's what you sign up to be when you are a teacher. With that in mind, I just don't think there's enough training when it comes to AI. I feel like there's, in all of these sorts of situations, it comes from the top. If the head teacher has an open mind, is able to consider AI in a really positive light, kind of trickles down into the classroom, but I think we need to consider what the head teachers are saying. There's a lot of benefit, but there's a lot of fear around AI as well, and I think it's getting that right. Also bearing in mind that AI is brilliant. Yes, lots of possibilities, lots of opportunities, but there is a need for that personal approach, like Daniel said as well. We need to bear in mind that there is a need for differentiation. AI can support in terms of planning and preparation, which is brilliant, but it's also really getting to understand that child, understand that child's hobbies and interests. Do they love Pokemon? How can we create a Pokemon curriculum, that teaches academics as well? Right. So it's utilizing AI, but not relying on it. But also believing, I fundamentally also believe that we need to look at the education system and allow there to be an opportunity for teachers to embrace AI. There's so much focus around assessments and report writing that people really aren't focused on anything beyond that because of the ticking of the boxes, unfortunately, but also the training around AI. And I think that generating some level of excitement would be beneficial as well, and that they are trained.
Yeah, the training. I definitely agree with you there. The personal touch is never going to be replaced by AI. But Rose, that just leads me on nicely. I'd just like to hear, because I know in one of your many roles, you're advising government and the people making these decisions. And again, we heard Keir Starmer, and we heard this morning Bridget Phillipson talking about AI, SEND, as political buzzwords, but from your perspective on the sharp end, what do you think is actually the most practical thing that can be implemented now? May not be the sexiest, but what do you think is actually going to be most useful from your perspective?
It's a good question, but I'm going to go roundabout in answering, Alex.
Oliver,
Sorry.
answer.
I think 4 things. You have to have vision. And you have to have a vision for how a technology can help somebody like you, how a technology can ease the system, can help with diagnosis, can help with managing, creating healthcare plans, all of those things. You have to have a vision for what you want the AI to do. And that needs to be built on an understanding of what the AI is good at and what we need the people to still do. Because it's all about relationships, as we've already said. Second, we need to work out what are the key use cases that we want to focus on and prioritize in order to get the best from AI for special educational needs. And as and that might not be very sexy. It might be something really boring, like managing processes, but making things smooth so we lose some of the bumps, so we can then get to the much more interesting things where it is about the AI really supporting, a student with special educational needs and enabling them to do something they just couldn't do before. And then there are the 2 infrastructure points. You've already mentioned one of them, and that's training. Training. Unless we help the educators, how on earth can they help the students? So there's a fundamental priority around training. And then the last infrastructure point is the even more boring, not that I think training's boring, I think training's very exciting, but, the pipes, as we might say. And that is the technology infrastructure, the data infrastructure.
Definitely.
And often that's just not there. And so that is something we need to prioritize, because unless we get that bit sorted out, we can't then leverage the benefits. So kind of 4 elements to trying to work out what we do to prioritize. And that's certainly the kind of thing I say in my advisory role as well, Alex.
I'm glad that you're getting the message to the people that can make these decisions. But I'd just like to a further point, Rose. You're mentioning assessment. And we know a lot about EHCPs in order to get the assessment for students. Do you feel AI could have a role there, or will it just potentially add to the problem?
AI can definitely help. One of the things that I think gets missed quite a lot in the hype around generative AI at the moment, and generative AI is really useful, I'm not saying it's not, is that we miss some of the other amazing things that AI can do. And intelligent analytics are a big part of that. Right. And that means we can start to do really advanced diagnosis early on. I think we could be picking things up much sooner with the right data and the right AI that might help us put in support earlier for students, which would be great. So I think there is a real role for AI in helping us with that assessment and diagnosis. And it's an area that I think it would be great if we could focus some attention on, because, we know in the time that we've built these advanced AI systems, we've also understood a lot more about how the human brain works. We understand a lot more about autism. We understand a lot more about dyslexia. We need to take that and use that to build the right kind of AI analytics that then can empower us, because we can identify what's happening for an individual learner much sooner, much more quickly, in much more detail, help that student, help their parents, help the teacher. So yeah, I think there's a really important role there.
I think that I want to say on the back of that is what it does is it empowers the teacher. We have a scenario where I have a child that is my friend's son, who is very clearly has ADHD. The school is not doing anything. The school is just pushing the parent to go to the doctor to get a diagnosis. It's like, actually, if you don't need the diagnosis, you don't need the diagnosis. You can see it. You might as well. There is people out there that just needs to put that intervention in. And if AI can allow us to go, actually, these are the traits. These are what we are seeing. And actually, if you try this, it may work. It may not work for that child. And that is the important thing. So I think that is where what you're saying there would really change that concept to give teachers confidence. Every teacher is a teacher of SEND. And that's the important thing. It's like, and unfortunately, I've spent the last five and a half years going to schools, talking about Microsoft products, and I know straight away when I walk into a school if this school is going to do it. If it's not, like we've all said, if it's not from the top, it will not be delivered. If it's not put in at policy level, it's not put in at senior leadership, and even at governor level, it needs to be understood. And that, for me, is where it is. I'm very passionate about being a SEND governor at my daughter's school. And we're not using technology how I would want to use it, but we have a SENCO that I have never, that actually, I nearly had a heart attack walking around with her because she never stopped. She was literally running from place to place, talking to every child and helping every teacher to support every child in that school, which is what we want to see. And that's where AI can go to that next level, because we can't have 10 SENCOs in every school. We can only have, and some of them we can't even have one. And that's what we need to also help use.
Thank you, Arran. That's a really, really valid point there. So I'm just wondering now, moving to the future, as it were. So how do you see, within the next 1, 2, 3 years, AI really impacting SEND in a positive way? I want to be hopeful. Obviously, we hear a lot about the SEND crisis and the funding crisis. You know, half of the councils potentially going bankrupt within 2 years because of the backlog and the cost. Do you see AI making any inroads to solving that crisis? And what do you see the future looking like? So perhaps, Dan, I could start with you. How do you see the future of SEND education?
I think anyone who works in SEN in England will be aware that we're in a state of crisis. I don't really get a sense of urgency from, except from SENCOs and from parents and head teachers. Local authority staff who I know from behind the scenes do have a sense of urgency to a large extent. But it feels to me that the crisis is much bigger than anyone is actually saying in public. I think that we have a serious, serious problem. My concern is that AI is going to come along and say, well, we can support these problems by doing X, Y, and Z. And so instead of backing down from the EHCP system, what we'll end up doing is propping it up with AI. That's my concern in terms of what probably will happen. But let me tell you, overall, my team and I have worked with about 10,000 schools, and I can tell you that there are 3 core barriers to all forms of implementation. I'd say 4, actually. There are 4 barriers to SEN and inclusion, and I think AI could help with all of them, theoretically. I don't know how, because, again, that's not my imagination. But one is that the biggest barrier for SEN is that teachers will say it's going to take more time, and teachers are very time poor already. So asking teachers to do yet more is very often what SEN appears to be. So if AI can help with that, then I'm optimistic. The second is the amount of stress that we have already on our teaching profession, that if SEN equals more stress for the schools and for teachers and for parents, then if we're not solving that problem, then we're not moving forwards. We're not developing, we're just being more entrenched and more problematic. The third, if you're a senior leader, then the biggest issue is money. So if AI can help with diminishing the cost. And then the fourth is what I call initiative-itis. Initiative-itis is, oh, here we go again, yet another thing. And the danger of implementing yet another thing in the long road of things that we have to implement because, oh God, here's another one. And so those are the 4 things. If AI in the implementation, in the orientation towards supporting SEN can solve those 4 things step by step, then it'll make a massive improvement. If all what actually is going to happen in reality is that it reinforces this sort of, litigious, legal framework which we have, which pits parents against local authorities and local authorities against schools, and it just supports that negative dynamic, then I would say, please, AI, back off. We've got enough problems as it is.
And Joanna, I'd just like to get
round of applause. Thank you very much.
Joanna, I'd just like to get your perspective on this initiative-itis, as it were. You were speaking a bit about training, getting teachers to, get the skills. How do you see, how can we create a training platform that's going to kind of match the teacher's timetable so it's not going to overwhelm them?
Sure.
Do you have any perspective on that?
Yeah, I still feel like we need to create excitement around AI. I feel like there is this fear around it. From my perspective, I have been working, on a one-to-one basis with a number of children, and it wasn't until I used AI in my planning that I really realized the benefits of AI. And that's why I'm here today, you know, talking about the benefits. But it wasn't until I'd embraced it at that point and realized I was able to make that difference on the one-to-one level that I've always wanted to do, that made me really gain an understanding of the benefits of AI. But I think it is talking to the heads. What I would love to do is to be an opportunity for a head teacher to go back into the classroom, working with the students, using AI, and then it to be that trickle-down effect again, and for there to be the opportunity for the training to be implemented in the classroom.
And Rose, I'm just wondering, from your perspective, are there conversations happening behind the scenes? I know you're privy to a lot of conversation. Are tech companies involved? How is it working?
There's definitely a crisis, and there's a recognition that there's a crisis. I would absolutely say that. And I think it's a tricky moment, because often at times like this, the temptation is to rush in and actually run some of the risks that Dan outlined. And actually, I think this is a moment when we need to stop and think very, very carefully. And personally, I think it's time to reconceptualize what special educational needs provision is, and to take this as a moment to actually create a new vision that thinks through how AI could help it, so that we don't just end up doing what Dan has outlined as being problematic and taking something that's not actually working and then just AIing it. I think we do need to stop and think, actually, now we have these very powerful technologies that can help us in all sorts of ways, from the practical, administrative processes, the management, to the diagnostic, to the actual support for students, support for teachers. And that hyper-personalization that's possible, that means that you really can reach a whole range of student needs. Let's stop and think about what we want our special education needs system to be like. So my future vision would be one in which we actually reconceptualize.
The whole reconceptualization.
Yeah.
And before we open it to questions from the audience, Arran, would you like to...
I'm going to say that actually reconceptualize the concept of education.
Because that too.
Yeah. So if there's a saying that a lady called Lorraine Peterson, OBA, who used to be the CEO of NASON, she says we have a 21st century intake of students to a 19th century education system. Now, we did have a 21st century education system, we just didn't have them in school, right? So what happened, right? Why have we still not got this 21st century education system? It is about money, it is about infrastructure, it is about actually breaking down barriers. And actually, what Rose said is really important. We have to stop. And it's not just about SEND, because actually, we know if we get education right for the children that are at the lowest level. I remember looking at schools that have done a quality mark on dyslexia, and actually, they've got an outstanding on their Ofsted, because they're not just looking at the 3 dyslexics in the class, they're looking at every child. And they're teaching them in a way that is dyslexia friendly, which helps. And I think, for me, I'm a massive fan of technology. I would use technology every day. It's like, we don't teach children to type, but we type every day, right? We go on about handwriting, and it's like, I can't read handwriting. I'm severely dyslexic, right? I hate handwriting fonts, right? It's my biggest bugbear in life. But if we can get technology right at the top, get technology right for everyone, have the right infrastructure, have the right mentality in that actually we use technology in our daily lives. The concept in our last government of saying we're going to ban a mobile phone, it's like, I was like going, okay, let's have an Equality Act conversation, because I've lost my phone, I can't do anything. I don't remember, you were saying the same thing. It's this kind of thing. And that's where actually now, for me, AI is getting to the point for me of being an accessibility tool, because it's allowing me to do 2 things. It's allowing me to create loads of information, loads of ideas, and some amazing concepts. The downside is that I've got too many things now. Having ADHD doesn't help, because you go, ooh, squirrel idea, and that's what happens. But that's the thing. But I think for our teachers, when I talk to SENCos, I know they're passionate. I know we want to change things. To have this many people in an audience listening about SEND and AI is fascinating to see, because you all want to change something. You're all within education. You want to make a difference. You want to change we want to change people's lives. We want to have an education system that works. And we want to see how we can use this technology in a safe, in a structured and empowering way. And to make us feel like we're actually achieving something. And that's what we need to do.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, Arran. So I just wanted to open up to you guys, turned up here. I'm sure there's many burning questions. So I believe there is a roaming mic, and we've got one straight here in the front here. So, perfect. And if you would like to direct it towards a specific individual, Arran or Rose or Joanna or Dan, or if it's just general, I think this guy just here, sorry. So, yeah, we have the first question already.
Hi, thanks panel. I just had a question emerging, which is around, if we, you talked about the really core issue of training, which I agree, as a teacher myself, it's really important. But in a practical sense for a lot of schools, I mean, I don't think it takes a genius to walk around and realize there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different private providers that are all doing relatively similar things. I wanted to know, like, in a practical sense, a school has to make a decision when they're doing an implementation project about going with this product over this product. That then means that on a teacher level, they might get trained in that particular product or that particular use case. And then if they were to move on to a different school, that might have a completely different thing. In this situation where we have Keir Starmer saying that he's really strongly investing in AI, I wanted to know what the panel thought about the idea of there being a national generative artificial intelligence for education, how that might reduce some of these complexities, because I think a lot of school leaders are concerned, well, do I jump in with that tool? Do I jump in with that tool? There's just so much concern around which is the right way to go. And I just think in a practical sense, the idea of there being a single implementation for national education, to my mind, might make the better sense, but I wanted to know what you all thought about that.
Who would like to take that? Rose, I feel like, or Dan, yeah, sorry.
Can I?
You go.
Let me just say something which may sound controversial or not, but I think that's one of the tricks on a panel. You need to sound like you're a little controversial.
Give it to us.
I cannot think of one national initiative that the DFE has got right over the last 30 years. But if you can, then I'd say, yeah, put it in their hands. That'll be great. But I couldn't think of anything worse than putting the possibilities of AI into the DFE's hands. I think that is a mad idea. And the reason is partly because as much as someone with ADHD, I find this all a bit loud and a bit overwhelming. This is the marketplace which is encouraging people fighting to be heard and to be seen, but they're also having to innovate to be seen and to be heard. And I think that is the spice that is going to drive innovation and change, not a national initiative. Having said that, there probably needs to be a lot of national guidance, and that's probably where you sit in. Back to you.
There is a national training program coming, but it's quite small. I think we need a multi-pronged attack. This is way too important. So yes, we do need some training, and I think there is a role for the government there, not just in providing some, but also encouraging others, bringing together collaborations between organizations who can work together to provide the kind of training we really need. Because it's not just about understanding the basic concepts of AI. And we shouldn't underestimate how basic they need to be, because we don't want to leave anybody behind. And then it's about how you take that understanding and put it into practice. We know from data we've been collecting that even amongst those people who are engaging with AI in schools and colleges, there's a gap between understanding the principles and knowing how to actually do it. So you need that as well. So you need multiple attacks, if you like, on the whole training piece in order to really upskill. And actually, I believe fundamentally it has to be led by safeguarding. I think the biggest risk at the moment is safeguarding. And I am really worried about it. AI brings tremendous risk for safeguarding. And everybody needs AI safeguarding training. If that was the most important thing, I would put that absolutely top of the list. And I know it's not very sexy, and I know it's rather, but if we don't get that bit right, then we can't get the benefits from all the stuff that is really interesting and exciting. So that's another element of this. So we definitely need a lot of attention to training. I think the government has a role. It's not necessarily in providing the training itself, but definitely in convening the provision of that training and identifying the key things that training needs to include. And that needs to be, yes, basic concepts. Yes, how do I apply it? Yes, safeguarding. But also, yes, recognizing that I'm learning it today, but I need to learn it tomorrow, and I need to learn it next week, and I need to learn it next month, because, hey, we've moved on from large language model to agentic systems already. And have you caught up? Have you caught up? Do you understand it? Most people don't. So, hey, this is a moving target. This is a big issue. Yeah, exactly. So we have to really invest in this if we're going to leverage the benefits, not the special education needs, sure, but for all of education.
Yeah, safeguarding definitely is something that a lot of people fear. So it will stop them from using it.
We need to allay that fear by helping people feel confident that they do understand enough about it, that they can fulfill that safeguarding role.
Definitely.
Just going to go to that gentleman.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I believe we've got a few minutes left for a few more questions.
You guys spoke earlier about a hyperfixation on assessments, testing, data collection, and analytics, and not a big enough focus on what I like to call democratizing the AI, allowing the students to speak their voice and their unique perspective into the lesson planning process without a dedicated tool in the marketplace right now that is dominant. What are teachers doing to democratize the education space with this groundbreaking technology, right? This is the most disruptive technology that's been implemented in education for 75 years, right? So what are teachers doing on a day-to-day basis to get the students involved with the content creation?
Great question. Anyone want to jump in on that? Arran, Joanna?
I think that's a fascinating question, because I've spent a long time going in and out of schools showing technology to support children with special needs. And actually, all of that technology is all productivity tools. They're all tools about supporting and helping someone with a difference or a difficulty. That's a fascinating question, because to me, actually, I haven't seen it yet. But actually, I was at school only a couple of weeks ago, and a teacher said to me, what I would love my AI to do is that I'm in my lesson, I'm teaching my science lesson, and I'm talking about this topic, and then I'm then going on about this topic, and basically the board is catching up with me. But actually what you've just said is the right thing we should be doing. But I think what... Rose, thank you. This is my dyslexia. I knew your name. What Rose said earlier about safeguarding, I think that is our fundamental thing we've got to do first. Because if we get that right, we can then let a child have that conversation. But also, we've got to do that education. One of the things I don't think we do enough of is we don't teach children how to do file management, right? How to organize your OneDrive, how to organize that. That is like a fundamental life skill. It's what we should be doing. And actually, it comes back down to how we teach. And how we teach children these things. It's like, I've shown my daughter how ChatGPT works, right? Now, she came home one day, really upset because she doesn't like the thing called a pen license, which I don't like either. So she dictated on my phone, write me a letter to my head teacher to get rid of the pen license. And it wrote her a letter. It had lovely flowery language in it. It's not written by her, it's written by AI. You could see it straight away. Right. We didn't send it to the head teacher, I just had a conversation. Being a Sen governor, and vice chair governors, you can have these conversations slightly. But the problem is now is she just thinks that's all that AI is. Actually, what we need to do is do exactly what you've said, and that is have the ability to be able to have a conversation. The concept now of like we look at coursework. When I was at school, 60% of my grade was coursework. Best thing for a dyslexic. When am I going to remember everything on one day, one time of the year for one exam that everyone's doing? I'm not, right? I'm going to fail. If we can come back to that model in our curriculum, it means then AI becomes a more powerful tool within that communication tool, and it's part of that toolbox. But going back to that last question about the equity of actually who's going to drive it, yes, we need equity from the top, but we do need innovation. Unfortunately, governments actually do stop innovation. Projects don't actually allow innovation because they allow things just to continue. We actually need things to actually grow and see things actually innovate. And there's going to be a lot of investment put into that, as we can see with companies like Microsoft, Google, Meta. They're all putting money into AI to actually get it to do something to help us.
We're almost out of time, but Joanna, would you like to finish us off with how you see perhaps student voice being included within the education system? Do you see that as revolutionary?
Yeah, I really think that we do need to be listening to everybody on an individual basis. and integrating that into the sessions, because I do believe in facilitating student curiosity. We need to be teaching in accordance with what the young people are interested in, because that's going to facilitate engagement. There's a massive issue, as we know, around attendance and school refusal. And I just think creating a curriculum or lessons that will engage the young people based on their hobbies and interest is probably the way forward. And I feel like AI could be a route towards that.
Yeah, definitely. As what Rose mentioned, the hyper-personalization. Yeah, like making education exciting for students instead of training them to get their pen licenses.
Yo.
Yeah, right, so we're just out of time now, so I just wanted to thank the panel. Really, really interesting discussion there, looking at, I love how we've gone to the reconceptualization of education. Thank you. And I just want to thank everyone as well for coming and getting involved in this conversation and showing BETT how much interest there is in discussing all things SEND. So next year we'll be in an even bigger theatre, we hope. So thank you very much. Have a nice day.